Hi, welcome to the Rider Rumblings podcast. We have a very special guest this week. Special is a great description for number 18, Jeff Fairholm, Rider Plaza of Honor inductee, three-time 1,000-yard receiver, 1989 Grey Cup champion, 107-yard reception against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in 1990, still a team record, and terrific person to boot. So with that build up, Jeff, the pressure's on you to live up to it. Thanks so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. What an intro. Holy smokes. I'm waiting for the cloud to I'm waiting for the crowd to be clapping here. That's great.
I should have found a sound effect on my phone. If I had the technical expertise, I could have really jazzed it up, but maybe we can get my dog to wag her tail before the podcast is over.
Looking forward to seeing Candy.
She usually crashes this one, so hopefully we can get her in there. You can meet her personally. That game was a bit of a dog last week. How's that for a segue?
Yeah.
Well, what do you make of that one?
You want to jump right in, don't you?
Why not?
Yeah, it was. I mean, there's tons of excuses, which I don't think anybody takes to heart. But you can talk about the short week. You can talk about the travel. You can talk about the fact that they really had a short amount of time to really prepare for them, and which quarterback was going to play too. It was a little up in the air in terms of whether Adams was going to play or Harris was going to play, and there's lots of excuses, but you're going to have one of those games a year anyway. So hopefully they've got it out of their system and they can move forward.
Well, just you look at it. And maybe it should have just been more predictable than it was. They were 2-0. They hadn't played that well against Edmonton, but they still won the game. And you look at the adverse circumstances they're facing with having to replace Dan Clark, one full practice between games, having to fly out east. I mean, maybe that was just what it was destined to be, or is that absolving them of too much?
Well, the answer to your question is who knows, but we'll find out, won't we? We're going to find out. We're going to find out Saturday night. So, we'll see what kind of team rebounds. I mean, what I did I think I tweeted something. I don't even know what the thing.
Yeah, I'm the one that twits.
You tweet, I tweet. Okay, whatever. But it's like when I was watching Duke, play that game, and he himself, I'm sure, would admit that he didn't have a very good game. In fact, I would suggest, and I have proof that he caused those two interceptions that Cody threw, but he came back, right? He was, he came back, caught a couple passes, one for a touchdown. What I loved about that is that he didn't celebrate, right? He didn't celebrate and say, "Hey, here's me. I caught a touchdown pass. Terrific." He knew he didn't play a good game, and it was a little bit of a comeback. So that's what I expect to see from the whole team. Whether it happens on Saturday night is yet to be seen, and so we'll find out if it was an anomaly, last Thursday, or I think this is going to be a really good temperature gauge to let us know what kind of team this is and how they play Saturday night.
I'm intrigued by your comment about Duke Williams. The first interception was obvious; it bounced off him as he was sliding and popped up and was picked off for a touchdown. The second one was an interception by Mike Jones on a route that Duke Williams ran over the middle and was intercepted without too much difficulty. What did you see on that play?
Well, I thought that Dwayne Ford did a great job on TSN explaining it. I was actually in the middle of drawing it on a piece of paper for my wife and explaining to her that why it wasn't Cody's fault. And what happened was, when you run an in route like that, you're not supposed to fade it. So which means fade upfield as you're coming across, because you're supposed to come straight down the line or actually back towards the quarterback a touch, because if you fade upfield a little bit, it opens the door for the DB to undercut you, and which is exactly what happened. And then Dwayne, I thought, did a terrific job on TV explaining why that ball was intercepted. If Duke had come downhill or straight across, there's no way that ball would have been intercepted.
There's been a lot of talk, at least in my inbox this week, about Cody. Every time the Riders lose a game, it's quarterback. And you lived it when it was Tom Burgess and Kent Austin, and there were quarterback controversies during that time. And everybody had their opinions about whether it should be Austin, Burgess, or in some cases neither. What do you make of Cody? I think he's taking a lot of undeserved flack right now. Not again to absolve him completely, but I'm just wondering what people expect sometimes around here.
Tough question. Honestly, and I'll be completely honest, and I'm not going to be a fan. I'm not going to be very popular, but I'm not a fan of Cody in terms of how he plays. I'm a fan of him as a person. I'm so far he's a winner, which is great, but I question his arm strength. I question his deep ball, which I've been fairly public with. And I see the ball. It's hard to say because I actually have only seen him play live a few times, but on TV, it looks like the ball is in the air an awfully long time going to the wide side of the field. Um, so I question it. I haven't seen enough yet to really say that he's my guy. And I know I'm not going to be popular with this, but I love the guy. Trust me, I do. But I'm not convinced yet. I'm not convinced that he's the guy that's going to take us to the promised land. I do think he's all we've got right now. I don't think Mason's ready to go. I don't think Delagala is ready to go. So we have to support him. We have to do certain things. I had a conversation with a Rider fan at the gym the other day, and he was talking about Jason Moss and his offense, and why are there so many short passes? And I think Rob, you've been pretty vocal on Twitter, talking about another 2-yard pass, another 2-yard pass. I'll give you something to think about. Maybe Jason Moss is playing to what Cody can do. Think about that for a second. And, maybe that's why we're not seeing the deep balls. And the deep balls that are going deep are contested. Really, nothing's been wide open other than a busted coverage to Picton the other day. But, perhaps he's just not suited for his game. And maybe the short passes are the way we need to do it. Sorry, this is a really long answer to your question, but and then the Edmonton game as well. What I saw was a lot of 3-man rush, and again, I'm watching on TV, so I certainly can't be an expert. But the back end must have been crowded because Cody looked confused, and it seems to me that he's going. And again, it seems to me, it's not a fact because I'm not watching film, but it seems to me that he's looking at one receiver and then either can't find another receiver, or to your comment about the O-line earlier, maybe he doesn't have time to find another receiver. So, I'm a guy watching, I'm a fan watching TV, and these are just my opinions, and I know I'm not going to be popular with some of these, but I have to tell you the truth. That's what I see.
I mean, it's interesting because if you look at the numbers, he's one of the more proficient deep passers in the league this year. If you look at the aesthetics, sometimes they don't necessarily jive with the numbers. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's a very fair assessment. Again, I don't see the back end. I don't see the coverages they're playing, but I just don't, it could be a receiver's issue. It could be a protection issue. It could be a quarterback issue. I mean, unfortunately, the quarterback gets the heat, and that's why they get paid the big bucks. But and that's why I take the heat off of him when I see it's someone else's fault. I'm quick to point out that hey, that's not his problem. It's the receivers. But I don't see a lot of receivers running downfield wide open, even on blitzes. And it's a combination of a whole bunch of things, like I've tried to explain. In that, it could be the receiver, it could be the protection, it could be the deep ball, could be the scheme. But I see free safeties coming over and helping out. So what's happening there is the quarterback not looking them off. I see free safeties like I can't remember his name, Boulet or whatever it is, from Montreal. He made an interception on Fine, where he shouldn't even be there. If the quarterback's looking him off properly, he shouldn't even be there. Or if he is there, the ball shouldn't be going there. You sort of throw where they're not, obviously. But I just don't see a lot of separation downfield for the deep balls. You just see a lot of contested balls where they're throwing them up and saying, hey, receiver, Shaq, unfortunately he's hurt, but Shaq, Duke, whoever, go up and make a play. But it's really a 50-50 ball. It's a good thing. I've always said the DBs play DB because they can't catch and play receiver. But so technically it's not a 50-50 ball, but they are. And that's what I'm seeing more and more of. And I think as receivers are doing a good job of it.
Well, at the risk of buttering you up even more, what I see that this offense is lacking, and that I think is hampering Cody to a degree, especially on passes of that nature, is that there's no number 18. I don't see that there's a receiver on this team where if he gets a step, he's gone. I don't see a receiver who is going to blow by somebody and be open for the deep route. I don't see a Kenny Lawler. I don't see a Lucky Whitehead. I don't see a Jeff Fairholm. That
I
seems
agree.
to be a missing ingredient in this offense. Duke Williams is very good, but he's not a burner. He got open in the deep pass. Mason Fine hit him for the 45-yarder in Montreal, but I don't think there's a receiver in that core who's going to strike fear into the hearts of the defensive backs just by virtue of pure speed and pure, oh my goodness, is he going to milt Stieglus? And I think that might be impeding the deep game as much as anything.
I think you might be right. I'm trying to give the credit. I'm trying to give credit where credit's due, or trying to give benefit of the doubt to the receivers. I don't know how fast they are. I don't know. I don't know how they get downfield. I was hoping that his name is escaping me. Number 84.
Jacob Prahl.
Thank you. I was hoping that Prahl would be that deep guy. Haven't seen much from him yet, other than I think he had one catch in the first game and a couple catches against Montreal. I don't even think he had a catch against Edmonton. I'm not sure, but I was hoping that he'd be the deep guy. There's a reason why an American is playing and starting in his first year with the Riders. I haven't seen anything yet. I don't know what they saw in practice. I haven't been to practices, so hopefully, maybe he's that guy. But we have to have protection to allow the receiver to get downfield and create that separation too.
And that's a massive issue. I mean, 8 sacks in the last game, and it could have been more. I mean, Cody's elusiveness, I think, got him out of trouble for 2 or 3 more situations. It could have been sacks. Even on the touchdown pass to Picton in Edmonton, he had to do one of his spinoramas in order to get away from the pressure. He was sacked 4 times in Edmonton. That was before Dan Clark got hurt. So the cracks were beginning to show in that offensive line right from the, well before the Montreal game. To me, it's sort of got that eerie shades of last year feel to it when you look at this offensive line. And without Dan Clark, there's no real quick plug and play there.
No, there really isn't. It takes time, and you're playing a very inexperienced guy at center. We've got a couple of inexperienced guys at tackles. And they've struggled. I think, from what I've seen, they've struggled, and they need to plug this up quickly. And we need to either fix them, have them fix themselves, or get some people in that can do it. But boy, having a relative rookie playing center and calling the plays, there were a couple times in the game where he looked completely lost and just didn't know who to block and was just trying to catch people. That's going to take some time, but time is not something we have at our leisure right now. We have to protect Cody, because if he gets hurt, we're really in trouble. And I think the offensive line is an issue that we need to fix fast.
I mean, can you scheme around it? I remember, as you know, I love to go back and look at things that happened in 1903. But in 1993, the only offensive lineman who returned, I think, was Mike Anderson. Aside from that, it was a completely new offensive line. And Kent still threw for 30-plus touchdowns, still threw for 5,000-plus yards. You still had a great year. Ray still had a great year, Narcisse. And that was with an offensive line that was virtually redone from the outset. To what extent can you scheme around this? Or is that just simply asking too much when it comes down to it being a game of force?
You can scheme. You can do a lot of sprint outs. You can throw those little short passes here and there. You can use play action. That's where the running game is so important. You can use play action to slow down that rush. You can do a lot of these things, but you still have to drop back once in a while. Otherwise, they're going to play those other things, and you have to be able to drop back. And you can scheme. You can use bring a 2 running back set in and help the offensive line out as much as you can. There's lots of things you can do. It's just a matter of doing it and making sure that you're comfortable doing it. I mean, it's hard to, there was a preseason, there was a training camp where they went through, some of their playbook. Well, they need to open up that playbook a little bit and start moving the quarterback around and giving them some help.
You mentioned the running game, and I mean, it's been all over the place this year, virtually non-existent in the opener against Hamilton, and then Jamal Morrow had a big game in week 2 against Edmonton, and Frankie Hickson played well as well. And then the Montreal game, it was pretty much shut down again and not emphasized as much. I don't know what to make of this running game. Is it the running game that excelled against Edmonton, against a team that just cannot stop the run, or is the norm going to be Hamilton and Montreal?
We've played 3 games, Rob, and all 3 games, like you said, were different. And so I don't know. I
Yeah,
don't know what we're going to see yet. I mean, again, it comes down to the offensive line too. I mean, running back is good. I mean, you can put Walter Payton, reincarnation of Walter Payton back there, and you can't run if you don't have blockers. Um, I thought that, well, first of all, in the first game, Edmonton had a fantastic defense, and we wore them down and were able to get some scores in the late third quarter and fourth quarter. But they have a great defense, so give them credit. In the second game, I think Morrow was fantastic, and the offensive line was coming off. It was working. They were using it. They were able to put drives together, like you said. And then and then against Montreal, Hickson came in. I love Hickson. I think he's going to be a great running back. I saw some things in preseason that I was really happy to see. And in a way, having him on the roster, I think he came in when Duke got hurt in the second game, and having him in that second game, I think was a blessing in disguise. But you have to have an offensive line, but I think our running game is going to be key because we have to use play action to stop these linebackers coming in and stop the pass rush. So again, time will tell. It's only 3 games. I mean, it takes, as you well know, it takes a good 5-6 games to figure out what kind of team this is. We don't have a lot of film to prepare for. Now they've got 3 games to review on teams when they're playing, and certainly playing back to back against Montreal helps because they know what they're going to see. So the scheming, I expect the coaching to be a much bigger issue in a good way for this game at home. So, time will tell. I wish you had me on in week 15, and I can tell
we'll
you
do
what
that.
kind of. Okay, I wish if this was week 15, I'd have some better answers for you. But there's just not enough evidence at this point for me to tell you what kind of team this is because they're still trying to find their way.
Yeah, and they've been all over the place. I mean, even within games, first half against
Yeah.
Hamilton, they could barely throw the ball. Second half against Hamilton, they looked like uh, your heyday. Edmonton, again, not a lot going on. All of a sudden, they catch some fire. It's been really, the Edmonton game, they have the running game going, and eventually the passing game kind of joins in. And then there's no running game or passing game against Montreal. It's just
Right.
and it's such a limited sample. How do you know? But
Exactly.
you've seen flashes from them. You've seen they can do this. You've also seen they can't do this, and it just needs some time to marinate, I guess.
I don't know if this is showing the right way,
Uh,
but we're 2-1.
yeah,
We're 2-1. So if we were 0-3, like Hamilton 0-3. I think Hamilton's 0-3. If we were 0-3, we'd be freaking out right now. But here we are. We're 2-1, and all I see is, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? What's going to happen? And you see it on Twitter, you see it on the news and papers and whatever, if they're papers now. But everyone's freaking out.
I hope so.
Everyone's freaking out. Yeah, I know. Have some patience. Have some patience. Go to the games. Have some patience. Cheer on the team. We don't know what kind of team this is yet. If we were 0-3, might have a bit of a different tone. But there's some good stuff that we've seen, and we have to celebrate the good stuff. Talk about the bad stuff and have faith that the coaches and the players are going to fix that. That's the way I look at it. Like I said, if this was week, if we were out of the playoffs at Labor Day, I'd be somewhat concerned. But hey, we're a 2-1 team right now, and there's a long season, and we have to have faith in the management and the coaches and the players that they're going to fix whatever they have issues with.
Well, my saying, I've always used it, is nobody talks about the planes that land, and so yeah, they were 2-0, and I mean, people enjoyed it. There were still some picking at the, people picked away at things they didn't like within those 2 games, but they were still 2-0. My inbox was not full. My Twitter account was not deluged with conversations. Then they lose the game, and there's the figurative crash of the plane. And this week has felt like it's 2015 all over again. And it seems that the losses tend to evoke a much more visceral and emotional reaction than the wins, unless it happens to be a playoff win. Then you get that reaction to a victory. But it's the losses seem to really, people tend to ruminate over the losses a lot more than they celebrate the victories. And that's media and fans, it seems. That's
Mhm.
human nature we're dealing with here, perhaps.
Absolutely. And, people, even when we win, people are going to nitpick at the things that went wrong. I think that's just human nature. People tend to look at the negative rather than the positive. And there's a lot of positive on this team. I think this team has something special. I really do. Now, injuries aside, and that's the thing. When you're going into the seasons, whoa, we have a special team. Well, it really depends on injuries. And you lose Dan Clark and Shaq Evans for an extended period of time, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, what are we going to do now? It's next man up. And I don't mean to be crass, but it's next man up. And when I got hurt and I wasn't around, we had people that would come in. I mean, we put Jeff Benjamin in at slot back, and he was a next man up quarterback for those young people that don't know. And we put a quarterback in a playoff game um, for me when I couldn't get through the game because of a wonky ankle. I mean, you got to have next man up mentality and just forget the guy who's it sounds bad, but forget the guy who's in the training room and not able to play. You gotta buckle down and get it done. Um, I I wish that people would look at the positive and take the positives, and I think it's a mindset shift that people in general need to change, me included. I do a lot of work on mindset, and I try to look at the positive things and what happened. Of course, when I get asked questions from people like you, I have to talk about the negative sometimes, but I try to look at the positive things, and there's tons of positive on this team, and I'm disappointed at the and I'm changing the subject on you here a little bit, but I'm disappointed at the attendance across the league. But I have to look at the fact that the people that are there are having a great time, and hopefully, as the summer progresses and comes to an eventual end. God, I hope we're not there yet. But it, comes to an eventual end, that people will start showing up and going to games, because this game is special to me, and it's a gate driven league, and people that aren't going to games, whether the team's winning or losing, are missing out on a hell of a lot of fun.
Well, I looked at the game and watched the game in Calgary the other night, and so many empty seats. The announced attendance wasn't that alarming, but there's just globs of empty seats everywhere. And
Yeah.
it's easy to attribute, look at that and say, okay, that's a Montreal problem, that's a Toronto problem, that's a Vancouver/BC problem. And BC's attendance plummeted in the absence of a concert. But when I see tons of empty seats in Calgary, when I see a response that is just not often associated with Roughriders fans, that gets alarming, because that's the fundamental existence of the Canadian Football League we're talking about. And you
Yeah.
see signs of indifference or inattention in those markets, in the core markets. Ugh. How's that for
Yeah, it worries
insightful?
me.
Ugh.
Yeah, well, no, it's true. I mean, I look at the attendance all the time, and even as a player, I used to look at the attendance. And when I was a player, we had full stadiums in Regina. Now, when I played in Toronto, it was a different story. But in the Sky Dome, it looked like everybody could go home in one bus. But at Taylor Field, I mean, I don't think people realize. That people say to me, "Well, if the team's winning, I'll go." Flip the script a little bit. Maybe if you go and you fill the stadium, the team will be better and they'll win. Because I don't think people understand how much a crowd at home affects the win or the outcome of the game. It really has a big effect. If people are having fun in Pill Country, and the players see it. I mean, that first game, I think I saw somebody, I can't remember who it was, run into Pill Country, and celebrate with the fans. That's what we need to have, but we need to have the stadium filled. On another point, I wonder, this is a game that needs to be sold, right? It's not like the NFL, and I won't even compare it to the NFL, because it's a completely different game, different marketing, different everything. But I wonder if teams are selling tickets. You need to sell this game, not just names on the field and banners and things like that to corporations. You need to get creative, and there are things that were happening way back when I played in the ancient days, that I don't see happening anymore. I just don't think there's enough selling of the game, and I think people, especially young people, are maybe not exposed to it, or they're They're not seeing how they can get to the games. I mean, I see, I'm pretty vocal on the Twitter, and I say, go to the games, go to the games. And people say, I would, but I've got this issue and I got this issue and I got this issue. With all due respect to these people, and I understand the issues, but there's ways around that. If you can't afford the gas to get to a game, get together with your buddies and share the cost. Or, if you're in Lloydminster and it's far, get a bus together and start getting creative to get to the games again. There's ways around it. And I go to the games. I go to the games here in Calgary. I plan to be in Regina 2 or 3 times this year to see games. And I buy tickets because it's important to me. I don't have the magic answer. I'm a sales guy. I've been a sales guy virtually my whole life, and my dad was too. And while we both played football, and even now, and there's ways that we can get around this. Teams just need to get creative and getting people into the stands.
I look way back when.
My opinion. Sorry to pontificate, but
no, I totally agree. Like, I think the change in the Rider business model may have hurt them here. They went from a community. They're still a community-based team, but they used to have like designates all over the province, rider reps. Like every community had a rider rep, and there was an advocate or like a salesperson in virtually every community, selling tickets, selling active memberships, spreading the word. And they went to a more centralized kind of bureaucratic model, and largely by necessity when you consider the degree to which the operation grew from virtual mom and pop to look at the stadium they now have, look at the sales of merchandise. I mean, they needed to do it, but they kind of got away from having their representative in 200, 300 communities. And I just don't see that there's that approach to let's sell tickets one by one by one by one by one. Let's convert them one by one by one by one by one. I just don't see that there is that boots on the ground grassroots mentality that is, I think, so fundamental to fostering attendance.
I sell special desks called consoles, and I treat my Suncor client the same as I treat a one position 911 center, because everyone's special. And you know where I make my money, my bread and butter is, it's not Suncor. It's the one mom and pop stuff, right to your point. And I don't know where the rider reps went, but I remember back in my day, I remember Huey from Prince Albert, who was, became a friend when I was there, and they were at every single game. And it made me go to PA and see, had a cabin up north at Emma Lake because I got a chance to see the province a little bit. But these people, man, they were free salespeople. I don't even know if these guys were paid, guys and gals. I don't even know if they were paid. They were
maybe you gave them a jacket or something, right?
Yeah, I think it was all volunteer. Yeah, that's all volunteer, and they're bringing people to the game. And the one by ones is, I think, what we're missing. And I think that, and I'm talking specifically about Regina, but every team, where's the sales? Where's the creativity? I don't see it in Calgary. I don't get asked to go to a game. I don't get, I see the occasional ad come through, but that's not, you got to get personal. You got to get personal with people and make it personal. It's a human to human thing, and you've got to make them want to come to the game. Corporations need to, local corporations, corporations all over the province need to get creative and bring the entire office to the game. That's how you get it. And you got to get back. I think you need to get back to grassroots. There's, again, I'll bring it back to football for you. When I had troubles, and I had troubles, I went through slumps and things like that. What do you do when you're blocking and tackling? You go back to basics. Go back to basics. Get the people back in. Make it fun. And it is fun when you go. It's just need to get people there and make it easier for people to get there. Make it easier to park. Make it easier for everybody. Ticket prices are too expensive. You know what? There's ways around that too. Figure it out. And if you need the rider reps, well, let's bring all 150 to 200 of them again. It's a free sales force.
Jeff, you've alluded to it, but what are you doing these days for the people who are, I'm sure,
well, I'm a sales guy. I'm not afraid to say it. I work for a company called Evans Consoles. It's a manufacturer here in Calgary. Actually, the manufacturing plant is behind me. and we manufacture special desking for command and control rooms. So like 911 centers, air traffic control towers, oil and gas control rooms, yeah, things like that. So yeah, that's what
Cool.
we do.
Interesting. And you still, I mean, we've chatted at Rider games. You still, the gas prices won't be an object or a obstacle to you getting back here a few times this year.
No, not at all. In fact, my daughter Madison has been accepted to go to University of Saskatchewan in a graduate program.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, with Dr. Ulver, and yeah, she's taking criminal psychology, and she's had a lot of practice, examining me. But yeah, so so we're going to be in Saskatchewan. We're going to be in Saskatchewan quite a bit this year, and for the next 5 to 7 years until she graduates. So looking forward to that.
Oh, cool. What a surprise. There's intelligence in the Fairholm family. It's certainly gone from Larry to Jeff to Madison, etc. It's
Well, thanks for that, but I attribute it all to my wife.
not
That's
to
not a lot up
exclude.
here. This head's been hit a few times, Rob. So.
Great. Well, Jeff, I can't thank you enough for doing this. This has been on my podcast bucket list for a while, and it's so kind of you to take some time.
I've never been on a podcast, so hopefully I did okay. And you're your friend, and you once in a while will mention me in the paper, and my kids get excited, and I get excited, and it's nice to be remembered, and it's nice to get my thoughts out there, and hopefully when people listen, hopefully I'm not upsetting too many people because I am somewhat opinionated.
Well, now you've done it. You've basically made yourself a repeat invitee, so you might want to block me before I start asking too chronically. So.
No, you're always welcome in my inbox, Rob. Anytime,
Oh,
that.
I appreciate that, Jeff. I just got to read this thing we call an outro because I'm told to. So if you can bear with me here, I'll try to get through this with
Sure.
flawless elocution. If you enjoy the podcast, please leave a review and a 5-star rating. It helps us grow the podcast. You can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to send us a question, you can email Rob at rvanstone@postmedia.com. So much for the flawless elocution, and we'll read it on the show. You can follow me, Rob, on Twitter at Rob Vanstone, or in absentia, Murray McCormick at Murray LP. Jeff, where can people find you on Twitter? Slotback18.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, Slotback 18 on Twitter. That's where I do most of my rider stuff, especially. I'm on Facebook. That's primarily for very close friends and things like that. And I do business stuff on LinkedIn as well. So you can find me pretty much by just looking for my name.
Perfect, Jeff. Thank you so much. Candy did not crash the podcast. I'll try and give you a shot. There she is. She's looking
sleeping.
rather undignified right now, sort of like her owner. For Jeff Fairholm, I'm Rob Vanstone. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll do this again next week if I'm still breathing. Take care and have a great day.
Bye, everybody.
We just got to let this